I'm seeing more and more options for genetic testing. What's the benefit of genetic testing?
Leah, thank you for that question. The field of genetics has exploded
Mm-hmm.
over the past 10 years, maybe 20 years, but really like recently they've made a ton of advances and they found really great ways to monetize it. You can send in a saliva sample or a spit sample, and people will create a song that you will enjoy based off of your genetic testing. You can do that for clothes, you can do that for colors of your room, you can do that for so many things, so many different things. And so it's really muddy. It's really confusing because if you talk to a genetics researcher versus a person that has monetized genetic testing, they are going to give you different answers
Okay.
of where the genetic testing is at. The researcher is going to say, wow, we've come a really long way, but we have so much more to learn. Because a lot of people don't know this, but people, oh, your genes are not able to change or able to mutate. And they do,
Mm.
and they can. The way to think about this is that genetics can set the stage, but your environment and the nurturing that you have will determine what play goes on.
Mm.
So, not saying genetics don't play a role whatsoever, but there's really interesting research on this population. Do they reach their max height capabilities? They have the genetics to, but if they're not nurtured, their body doesn't reach the potential that the genetics had them at. So there's much more nurturing that
Mm.
goes into genetic profiles than what we once knew or wanted to believe. So even our genes aren't set in stone. There are some that are, but most of them they can change with time and different things that are happening, right? And I think an easy example of this is just look at how the body changes over time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's proteins that are being transcribed and then split and then given these signals to build these things. And as we age, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
So things change through time. So the genetic researcher would say it's very dynamic. There's so much more that we have to learn. Yes, we have this helix of gene and DNA sequences, and we can test a lot of these things, and it's really incredible. But whew, there's so much more that we have to do. Now, the other side of this, the person that may have been in genetic research that has now monetized a certain aspect of it, they'll say, we can look at your sequences and determine exactly what medication you need. Or we can look at your sequences and determine exactly what song your body would enjoy listening to the most. And the researcher would go, what?
Mm.
How? How is that happening? And what's interesting is you do these genetic tests and you get these responses back. And the responses go, yeah, here's the profile. We think maybe you should add this in. Maybe you should put this in. Your body doesn't tolerate this well, so you should do this thing instead. But then also there's a suggested list of you should do more physical activity.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't smoke. You should decrease alcohol intake and all these other things that we already know.
Yeah.
So why do we need a genetic test to tell us those things? And this idea that like these medications can be completely individualized to you based off of your genetic sequence, like pretty cool. Like medicines can be more precise, but we have to ask the question from the genetic researchers of is it actually there?
Mm.
Like are we to that point? I think from what we have seen and what's been promoted that we feel like we're really close to that. Like we see things being cloned and all these incredible things of sequencing, but the research is saying it's still far away, and the people monetizing saying, "Oh no, we got this." Like, I gotta fall somewhere in the middle, but lean more towards the researchers
Yeah.
that are doing this day in and day out. Especially when the list that and recommendations that come after it are giving these general health recommendations that we already have. That
Mm-hmm.
you don't need a test to know that. Yeah, I probably shouldn't be smoking if I want to have a healthier life. Probably should be getting adequate sleep if I
Yeah.
want to achieve these goals that I have. So it's very general. And to get general answers, do you need a very specific test? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the monetized side is a little suspect. And also trendy. Like we don't need to hop on trends.
Yeah.
Like trends are cool sometimes, like sometimes they're important, sometimes they're great. But if genetic testing monetized I love that you use the song example because I think in my head I was like, oh, it's just like ancestry or
Yeah.
whatever, right? But like there are these kind of like far fetched things, and then it begs the question: do you actually like that song, or do you like that song because they're telling you you're going to like that song because your spit said so? Like that just seems like a little suspect to me. And no offense to those researchers, I'm sure they have pure intention, but to me it's like, why are you like, there's no need to, I'm sure there are some benefits, but there's no need to hop on a trend or a bandwagon when you could just hop on the bandwagon of better sleep, exercise, better food, no alcohol, no smoking, things we always talk about of gratitude and forgiveness and having meaningful activity. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
think that that's a better trend to hop on than the genetic testing one.
Yeah, and Matthew Walker from Stanford's, he has a sleep lab out there. Like, great TED talk. We use his work in our book and reference him because he's done incredible work in the area. But he's shown how genetic sequences can change based on the amount of sleep that you're getting and what's getting activated in the immune system. Like, what cells, the cells that are going to be reactive and destroy, are the cells that are going to say, "Hey, let's go and repair this thing."
Mm.
So, like, sleep is super important. And do we need individualized things? I think maybe at some point, but one way to look at this is like training an athlete, a lifelong athlete. But let's say this person wants to be a baseball player.
Mm.
I want to play in the MLB. How many coaches do they have when they start in Little League?
Mm.
One or two coaches, right?
That are usually parents.
They're usually parents.
Yeah.
Get the base down.
Yeah.
This is how you catch a ball. This is how you field a ground ball. This is where the play is going to. This is the pitcher mound. This is how you swing. These are the rules of the game. All right, you got that foundation. Now you start to get a little bit more individualized into your position as you get older. All right, second base, shortstop, we're going to work on turning two because as much as you want to turn two in left field, you're not going to have that opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now you have a coach working with the middle infield and a coach working with the outfield, building upon that base that's already been built. But if they haven't learned how to field a ground ball, there's no point in learning how to turn two.
Yeah.
So now you get to a professional level, and there's coaches for almost every position.
Mm.
But guess what they usually do in spring training? Field a ground ball, learn how to run the bases,
Yeah.
back to the basics. So the more times that we think we need individualized things, we have to ask, well, where is your performance actually at? And not to be harsh, but what's the reality
Mm.
of it? Like, you probably don't need this individualized song that was made to you based off your genetics to make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
You need better relationships. You need to learn how to field a ground ball and where the play's going to before you start getting into the very, very specifics of
Yeah.
it.